Let me ask you a question. Have you ever saved a seat for someone who never showed up? Maybe it was at dinner, maybe at church, maybe at a family gathering. You kept the chair there, hoping they would walk through the door, but they never did. Now imagine leaving that chair there for years, not days, not weeks, years, because you believed deep down that one day someone would finally sit in it. Today I want to tell you a story about a man who kept an empty chair at his table, and the reason why it changed an entire town. In a quiet farming village lived a man named Daniel. Daniel was known as a kind man, but a simple one. He owned a small house near the edge of town, a patch of land where he grew vegetables, and a wooden table where he ate dinner every evening. But there was something strange about Daniel's table. It always had 5 chairs, even though Daniel lived alone. 4 of the chairs were normal, but the 5th chair was different. It sat at the head of the table, and Daniel never allowed anyone to sit in it. When visitors asked about it, Daniel would simply say, "That chair belongs to the Lord." Some people thought it was a beautiful act of faith, others thought Daniel was a little strange. But every evening Daniel prepared his meal, sat at the table, and before eating he would bow his head and say, "Lord, thank you for this food. You are always welcome at my table." Then he would glance at the empty chair and smile. You see, Daniel believed the words of Jesus in Matthew 18:20, "For where 2 or 3 gather in my name, there am I with them." Daniel believed that when he prayed, God was truly present, even if no one else could see him. Years passed, and the empty chair remained. One winter evening, a traveler came through the village. The man looked tired, hungry, and lost. He knocked on doors asking for a place to stay, but many people were cautious of strangers. Finally, he reached Daniel's house. Daniel opened the door. The traveler said softly, "Sir, I haven't eaten all day. Do you have anything to spare?" Daniel didn't hesitate. "Come in," he said. He placed food on the table and pulled out a chair, but he stopped when he reached the 5th chair. He moved it slightly aside. "That one is reserved," Daniel said gently. The traveler raised an eyebrow. "Reserved for who?" Daniel smiled. "For the Lord." The traveler looked confused, but he sat down anyway. They began to eat. After a moment, the traveler asked, "Do you really believe God sits at this table?" Daniel nodded. "I believe he hears every prayer, sees every heart, and walks with those who follow him." Then Daniel quoted Psalm 34:8, "Taste and see that the Lord is good. Blessed is the one who takes refuge in him." The traveler grew quiet. You see, this man had once believed in God, but years of hardship had hardened his heart, losing work, losing family, losing hope. He had begun to believe God had forgotten him, but something about Daniel's quiet faith stirred something inside him. They talked late into the night. Before leaving, the traveler asked one final question. "What if God never sits in that chair?" Daniel answered without hesitation. "He already has." The traveler left the next morning, but Daniel's faith stayed with him. Weeks later, the traveler returned to the village. This time he brought something with him, hope. He had found work in another town. He had begun praying again, and he came back to thank Daniel. But when he arrived, Daniel was gone. The neighbors told him the news. Daniel had passed away peacefully the week before. The traveler felt a deep sadness. But the villagers told him something surprising. The man who had found Daniel was the town doctor, and when the doctor entered the house, he noticed something unusual. Daniel had died in his chair beside the table, but his head was resting gently on the empty chair, as if someone had been sitting there beside him. When the doctor told the villagers, many of them fell silent, because suddenly they understood something. Daniel had never been eating alone. Hebrews 13:5 says, "Never will I leave you, never will I forsake you." Daniel believed that promise with all his heart, and his faith changed the way he lived every single day. Now let me ask you something. How different would your life be if you truly believed God was sitting at your table, watching over your family, listening to your prayers, walking beside you through every problem? Because the truth is, he is. Jesus said in John 14:23, "Anyone who loves me will obey my teaching. My Father will love them, and we will come to them and make our home with them." God is not distant. He is present in your struggles, in your victories, in your quiet moments. Sometimes we just forget the chair is there. That's why it's important to surround our lives with reminders of faith, scripture, messages of truth, symbols that bring our focus back to God. Not because God needs reminders, but because we do. If you're looking for meaningful items that help keep faith at the center of your life, I encourage you to visit www.stayingbythestuff.com. The mission behind that site is simple: helping believers stay grounded in faith and truth in a world that often pulls us the other direction. Just like Daniel's empty chair, sometimes the smallest reminder can keep your heart focused on God. Before we finish, I want you to picture something. Tonight, when you sit down at your table, imagine there's one more chair, an empty one, reserved for the Lord. Now ask yourself this question: how would you live differently if you remembered he was always there? Psalm 16:8 says, I keep my eyes always on the Lord. With him at my right hand, I will not be shaken. Daniel lived like that every single day, and because of that, his quiet faith changed a stranger's life, maybe even an entire village, and who knows, your faith might do the same. If this story encouraged you, be sure to follow for more powerful Bible parables and faith stories. And if you want reminders that keep your heart focused on God, visit www.stayingbythestuff.com. Because sometimes the greatest act of faith is simply remembering the chair was never empty.